Today's video is another topic that originates from the research and work of John Gottman, a leading relationship researcher. It's something called the distance and isolation cascade. These are 4 recognizable stages that couples tend to go through when they're inevitably headed for divorce. So today that's what we're going to talk about, the 4 stages of this cascade, as well as some tips for how to avoid going down this path. Before we get started, just want to mention my new mental health journal, the Personal Growth Journal, is coming out on December 28th. If you are somewhere where Amazon does not ship, the ebook version is out for pre-order right now. I do want to mention I would highly recommend the paperback version instead, just because it is a journal and formatting is best for that. But if you don't have access to Amazon shipping, then by all means go ahead and pre-order the ebook. It's different from the previous mental health journal, A Season of Life, in that A Season of Life is really for daily use, every day for 90 days, and it's really same thing every day, very focused on prevention and using positive psychology techniques to keep up your mood, your sense of connection, your joy in life, your gratitude. This one is slightly different. It's more for using in different situations. So it has 75 templates. For instance, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling hopeless, if you just had a confusing interaction, if you're trying to plan for the future, if it's your birthday, there are a lot of templates in there for very specific situations. So how you use it, you basically just go through the table of contents, you look at what are the different chapters, like emotion regulation, a new start, relationships, anxiety, hope. And based on the different situations in there, you see which one best describes your situation, and you choose that journaling template, and hopefully it helps you process through whatever you're going through. So link for that will be in the description box as well as a pinned comment. Now let's get into today's topic. Our thoughts are very powerful, and the way that we think about people in our lives is hugely important for determining how we go on to treat them. Like, you're not going to go above and beyond for someone you don't like. You might actually mistreat them, versus someone that you really, really do like. You might be extra appreciative of them. And I always say it's good to have a very realistic, nuanced view of reality where you acknowledge both the good and the bad of a situation. But when it comes to romantic relationships specifically, I do feel that you need a good, healthy, strong dose of idealizing your partner. The reason for that is that if you're hoping to be with this person for the whole rest of your life, if you're in it for the long run, conflicts, disagreements, incompatibilities in your needs versus their needs are bound to come up from time to time. You need to have a really positive view of them in order to move forward from that. Otherwise, these little things, they just add up over time. Now, I'm not saying you should be oblivious to the fact that your partner has weaknesses or unfavorable traits like everyone does. Of course not. I think it's okay to acknowledge, hey, my partner is not very good at this thing, or my partner sometimes struggles with this. But if you want your relationship to last forever, I really do feel like you need to have a strong sense that the positive outweigh the negative for them. Because what often happens, and John Gottman talks about this, is that negative thoughts build about our partners, and we're very confirmatory creatures. We want to confirm the beliefs we already have. It's much less difficult mentally for us to just confirm what we already believe than it is to question what we believe. But we look for further evidence that our thoughts are true. If you have a negative belief about your partner, you're going to look for more evidence of that negative thought about them. And then the negativity only intensifies and your dynamics disintegrate, because the more negatively you view them, the more poorly you treat each other. Stage 1 in the distance and isolation cascade really reflects this. It reflects a corroded view or perception of your partner. Stage 1 is when you see your relationship problems as severe. So at some point, your relationship might tip into so much negativity that it feels insurmountable. So if you're in stage 1 and somebody asks you about your relationship, you might say, oh yeah, my partner and I, we have some serious issues to work through. You might not really trust that things are going to get better. You might feel like a lot of pain has unfolded between the two of you. There might be very little positive affect left and quite heavy amount of negative affect between the two of you. Things might just feel hopeless for you. Now, stage 2 of this cascade is talking about your problems with your partner feels useless. You don't seem to be able to work things out even when you try to. You've started to keep things to yourself. You don't see the point in having certain discussions anymore. Like, do you remember that scene from The Office when Pam is talking to the cameraman with whom she has an emotional affair? And he's basically telling her about how he ended up getting divorced, and he says, when we stopped fighting, that's when I knew it was over because we weren't fighting for it anymore. Imagine that him and his wife at this point were in stage 2, where they just didn't see the point in talking about things anymore because it didn't seem like things could get better. There's something about this stage that seems like giving up. It's kind of like throwing your hands up and saying any effort we make to resolve this doesn't even matter anymore. Stage 3, you start living parallel lives. You no longer have meals or dates together. You see your own friends, you go to your separate jobs, you take part in separate hobbies, you don't spend much time together. Your interests are diverging. You're more like roommates than lovers. You don't interact much throughout the day. Maybe your good times are with other people now. The triangular model of love views romantic love as a combination of commitment, passion, and intimacy. But by the time you've reached stage 3, when you're living parallel lives, you don't really have passion or intimacy anymore. All you have is commitment sort of keeping you hanging by a string. Now in stage 4, you enter loneliness. This one's pretty self-explanatory. You feel lonely. You don't feel close with your partner. You don't have that emotional intimacy from the one person who's supposed to reliably give it to you. You feel bored and restless. You're starting to long for connection of any kind. And of course, that can open the floodgates for cheating as well as for physical illness, especially for men, because men who tend to not have other support systems in place, when they start to feel lonely in their relationship, it really takes a toll on their health. So if you see yourself sort of slipping down this slope, this descent into relationship dissolution, or even if you just want to make sure that you don't get there, what are some things that you can take away from this research? It all starts with the way that you think about your relationship and your partner and your relationship history. So Gottman did a longitudinal study of 56 couples, and he interviewed them about their relationship past, and 3 years later, he could predict with 94% accuracy which ones lasted and which ones didn't. The way he predicted that was based on their answers, based on the way that they spoke about their relationship. He found that there's a huge link between the way you speak about the past of your relationship and your future outcome. Past influences the future. We know this instinctively. And the couples that saw their past times through not rose-tinted glasses, but maybe like dark-tinted glasses, who saw it all as sort of sullied by this negative filter, they went on to break up. So anytime you catch yourself making a negative evaluation about your partner, it would be really helpful to stop, think for a moment, maybe make a mental list or write it down, or even verbalize out loud what you admire about your partner. Remind both yourself and your partner of that thing. If, it's the 6th time this week that they didn't do something you asked them to do. Instead of thinking, oh my God, this person is so lazy or blah, 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 whatever, stop yourself and think, my partner's working so hard at work. He's really persevering in all the difficulties that he's experiencing with this horrible boss. Yesterday, my partner made me tea out of nowhere. She didn't even ask me if I needed it. She just made me an extra one. That was sweet of her. So try to think about that in the moment when you catch yourself having a negative thought about your partner. And also find a way to think about your history together in a more positive light. If there were hard times in the past in your relationship, talk about how you overcame them together. Infuse those narratives with some humor, with levity, with fondness and affection. Look back fondly on the ways that you connected with each other. Gottman found that there were several factors related to how couples recall their past. One is called chaos versus sense of control. So there were those couples that viewed the early days of their relationship as stressful and chaotic. And there were those who could find an internal locus of control, could recognize that bad things didn't just happen to them as a couple, but the two of them were able to surmount those bad things together. It removes the focus from these external things happen to us to this is how we coped with those external things. You may remember from my video on attribution theory, which I'll make sure to link in the description box of this video if you want to watch it. There are a lot of benefits to having an internal locus of control, of feeling like you have a say in what happens to you. Those benefits extend to relationships too. The second factor that Gottman found is something called disappointment versus glorifying the struggle. So there were those who were unable to remember anything but negative parts about their early days as a couple, and there were those who could see the silver lining even in the hard times. Now this piece relates to a different video I made on learned optimism theory, and I'll make sure to link that one down below as well. But if you've seen that video, you may remember the many benefits of seeing the silver lining even in stressful or traumatizing experiences. And the last 3 factors that Gottman found were associated specifically with men. So specifically for men, it was really important that they saw a sense of unity instead of separate lives with their partner. The more the husband could see the dyad as unified, the better their chances of surviving. Expansiveness was also also associated, meaning the more the husband could remember the specifics about their early days of courtship, the better. And affection. The more the man could express affection or admiration toward his partner, the better as well. So in summary, how you think about your partner, your relationship, and the history of your relationship is hugely impactful to the future of your relationship. Once you start to negatively evaluate your partner, your relationship, and your relationship history, you start down the distance and isolation cascade, in which you see your relationship problems as severe, talking about things seems useless, you start living parallel lives, and you descend into loneliness. So challenge yourself to recognize the valuable aspects of your partner. Speak fondly about your relationship history. Don't stop talking about things and trying to work things out. When you speak about your relationship history, focus on how the two of you found control even through the chaos, how you overcame difficulties together, how the two of you were a unified team, the specific details, and the parts that make you express affection and fondness towards your partner. Our thoughts affect our feelings and our behaviors. And of course, our feelings and behaviors also affect our thoughts. But adjusting the way that you think about things is one really minor tweak that can be immensely helpful to saving your relationship. So why not implement it? And I think I should probably state the obvious, which is that this advice is not for people who are in abusive situations. I think if you're in an abusive situation, probably not the best to constantly reframe it to, oh, yeah, my partner did this terrible thing to me, but here are 4 things that I like about them. Obviously not. Obviously, if that's your situation, I hope you're able to get out as soon and safely as possible. But just thought I'd mention that all of this advice is for healthy couples alone. Let me know what you thought about this. I'll see you soon.